So speaking of Stearns, developing the pitching, all of that stuff, the pitching will continue to be a massive priority for the Mets this offseason, but the internal depth chart just got a short-term hit this week. Mets left-handed pitcher David Peterson underwent surgery this week to repair a torn labrum in his hip. The normal recovery is about 6 to 7 months, which makes Peterson's likelihood of being on the opening day roster extremely low. According to a person familiar with the situation, the labrum tear is something Peterson has dealt with for years, but he put off surgery because he felt he was able to pitch without discomfort on many occasions. Other starts proved more challenging for Peterson, who felt some irritation as he began his offseason throwing program at home in Colorado. When asked about the rotation construction without Peterson, Stearns said the following: "It does change our depth chart a lot. We'll have to make sure that we have sufficient depth. It's certainly my hope and expectation that he's going to be able to play an important role on our team in the second half." With Peterson out for an extended period of time, the Mets' internal depth options currently sit at Tyler McGill, Joey Lucchesi, and Jose Budo. Going into the offseason, the Mets have just 2 legitimate starting pitchers in their rotation, headlined by their breakout rookie ace, Kodai Senga, along with lefty contact manager Jose Quintana. Notice how every single player that I don't like plays through these injuries like a bunch of fucking morons.
Yeah, I mean, how many times are we going to do this with the players? And putting stuff off, and then it ends up biting you eventually. I just don't understand. If you're a pitcher, whatever injury you have as a pitcher, you should never be pitching through an injury. I mean, I'm in full belief there, especially for a guy who was not in our starting rotation. When the Mets made these signings, you bring in, take your pick, the DeGrom, the Scherzer, the Bassett, whoever. Pearson not supposed to be in the starting rotation. He's supposed to be, maybe we talk about in the minors, maybe as a depth piece. Get surgery. You're not having big expectations, so get the surgery so that you're not in the starting rotation. But now in a year where he maybe has a little more expectation because the Mets have absolutely no pitchers, now he's unavailable. So now they have even less pitchers. So again, just poor timing on his part. Really, I mean, from an organizational standpoint, they should have made him get the surgery a couple years ago. So I just think that's just very, very silly. But now we've been talking about this from the beginning, and in Stearns' press conference, he said top priority, pitching. And I'm in full agreement there. I mean, the Mets need a lot of help in that department. They need help in the rotation. They need help in the bullpen. They need help with the depth in both. They just need pitching help everywhere. So, and this just adds on to that. This is just another arm that's not going to be available. Now you got to really look even more that starting pitcher market. If you want to talk about lefties, okay, you got to look in that area too. Long relief man, they really got to address all these areas. And this is what Stearns, again, it's up to him now, because we talk so much about Epler and Sandy and all this other stuff. It's Stearns' time now. He's supposed to be a guy that's brought in good pitching, had good pitching teams year after year in Milwaukee. Let's see you do it. Let's see you create the magic, because that's what it's going to come down to. Because it's not like you're just going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to sign Ohtani, and I'm signing Yoshi Yamamoto, and I'm signing Blake Snell, and I'm signing, just everybody. It's not going to be as simple as that. It's going to be up to Stearns to find, we've talked about, these under the radar guys we haven't heard of, make on the 2, whatever you want to call it. They're on the 40-man. They come up. They are productive pieces for you. That's what it's going to come down to, that depth. Because like we said, all these absolute bums that we've seen, the Yohan Lopez's of the world and the Lavenders, and you can just go on and on and on. You could make 50 to 100 guys of just absolute bums the Mets have had on the mound. With Stearns, I just really hope that happens much, much less frequently. So that's what it comes down to, is just having quality arms that can step up in the loss of David Peterson, or if anyone else gets hurt, you're just going to need to add a ton of arms to this organization.
You just look at the depth chart right now. Obviously, they haven't done anything, but it's crazy. They have 2 starters and 2 relievers on the whole fucking roster right now. Let's be real for a sec. Brooks Raley and Edwin Diaz, Kodai Senga, and Jose Quintana. That's crazy. Not to mention, we kind of saw this similar situation last year as well. We had an emptied out rotation. We had what was it, Scherzer and Peterson. I mean, was that what our rotation was after Scherzer and Carrasco?
Carrasco.
The fact that it's just turned over just another year, they got to figure this out.
It's almost like targeting a bunch of 40-year-olds when Kevin Gausman was on the marquee. You could have focused on him. That would have been nice to pencil in. You get Senga, now you got 2 elite ones. Quintana's your 3. You don't have to go in the Yoshi market per se. You would have two guys, at 180 innings you can pencil in. And then, hey, you don't got to go out and spend $200 million on Yoshi. Maybe you can play in the mid-tier market to find a 3, and then you can go find your, bargain bin guys. And again, that's what David Stearns is here to do. He's got the money. He's got the checkbook. He can go out and get the big guys, but he also needs to continue to bring in the guys. Again, Eric Fetty's just throwing a name out there. Coming back from Japan, had changed his repertoire. He's actually elite now. Maybe he's that a guy. Find that version. Just find these bums. Find the guys that when you're looking at it, you're like, they signed who? Joe Pompas. Like, perfect example of the Brewers. Who the hell is Joe Pompas? He's one of the best relievers in baseball. That's what he does. Find those guys. Find starting pitchers. Find relievers. Find them all. Find an ambidextrous guy. Find a knuckleballer. Find a guy that can throw dragonfly balls. We got a ghost fork. Just everybody and every single, if it's in Asia, find them anywhere. Go, I want you exploring, find this anything. That's what he can do. And just continue to build the depth. Is there some, internal depth coming? Possibly, but they're not. They're about a year or two away to bring in some internal guys. Plus, that maybe we've drafted and developed, but those guys are 2 years away. Stearns can go on and went nuts about Steven Ridings and William Woods. Now, when the Mets make those waiver claims, again, Penn Murphy, sexy. Again, not going to pitch, but yeah, that's a sexy waiver claim. Those are the kind of guys that he needs to hit on. And just, stick him in Syracuse. Build that 40-man roster to help. Build a 60-man roster. You got the money. Again, this isn't Milwaukee. Like, sign a bunch of, 10 $1.5 million deals with minor league invites. Just do it. Like, you have that ability. And if, give them like the Luke Voigt treatment and say, hey, you can get opt-out after a certain date if you're not called up. But you have that financial ability to say, hey, overpay. Team, let's say Oakland A's are giving you $2 million. The Mets are giving you 1.75. You want to go rotten way at Oakland? You want to give a chance potentially on a good team? Or give him $3 million if it's a guy worth it. You can do that. So that's what I expect Stearns to be in every single trade market, which, hey, maybe you should watch the rest of this video, David. You got some ideas? I got you. Coming up in a segment later, but trade market, free agent market, I want you in every market. I want you just keeping an eye on everything and do not be scared to be aggressive. Just go out and just build this arm. If they throw 100, sign them.
I didn't get your analysis on the impact of losing David Peterson.
The impact was just about the many words I said. He's depth. Like, can we stop with this? He's never going to be anything more than depth.
Wasn't he a first-round pick, though?
Was he? I mean, there's nobody really in that draft class. It's kind of been a shitty draft class, to be honest, because the guy you love is still rotting away in Norfolk.
He was pitching great in the playoffs, dork. James Paxton, you're out there. I know you are. I feel like the Mets need to go the Rangers route and just sign a bunch of guys. Sign 10 freaking pitchers. Have your headline. Have your Jacob deGrom move, which can be Yoshi Yamamoto. And then just sign a bunch of guys who can be threes, who can be back-end starters. They need to do stuff like that because, yes, we saw a good stretch from Jose Budo. We saw good and bad from Tyler McGill. We saw quality from Joey Lucchesi. But I want those guys to be the 11th, the 12th, the 13th option. They have the flexibility to do that. The thing is that, yes, David Peterson, it's an arm, but I want there to be actual talent on some of these arms with the pitching staff, obviously. I don't want it to be just the quantity. Just the quantity. I need a balance of quality and quantity. The Mets just bring in a bunch of guys. They claim a bunch of guys. They sign a bunch of guys. They trade for a bunch of guys. None of them stick. They all stink because they don't have that raw talent whatsoever. They have some good things about them. Then you have some coaches that screw up whatever they have. They've screwed up. But overall, the Mets, they need a lot of options that are quality, in my opinion. I think that that's something that they need to really, really address. They need to bring in a lot of flyers, in my opinion. A lot of flyer pitchers who had success before, but their value is down. They were injured. They had a tough year last year. Maybe they can resurface some of that talent. I talked about James Paxton. Good stuff last year, kind of fell off towards the end there, got hurt. Who else were we talking about in that?
You got Miley, you got Giolito, you got Flaherty, you got tons of arms. None of them obviously don't have to be those guys, but those types of guys. Guys who've had Cy Young type seasons or, good seasons, who are coming off bad, you can get for like $7 to $10 million.
But that's just the back end. Again, they still need to obviously pair up somebody with Kodai Senga. They need a legitimate number 3. And then that's how you fill out the rest of the rotation with, guys who can be considered 3 starters if they're at their best and they can back up the rotation. I just don't want to see them fill in a 5-man rotation and then say, okay, well, Tyler McGill, Joey Lucchesi, Jose Budo. We have multiple options. Well, they don't seem to have shown enough quality to come in here in a pinch. So you need to go external with this whole situation. There's not much of a risk when you bring in a lot more younger options to the rotation. We had a lot more concern with the Scherzer and Verlander and Brasco and things like that. But it's a 162 game season, and the Mets need to start treating it that way with the pitching. Speaking of health,